Welcome back for episode 159 of Americans Watching the Footy, our 2024 Gather Round recap. I'm Benjamin Castle, here with my brother Ethan. Now, Ethan, should all teams merge? Yes. Even though the sign wasn't there?
He did have a good sign at the concert after.
And also, his outfit this year was way, way better. You'll see it in the thumbnail. I, of course, am talking about Tommy Flanagan. Mr. All Teams Should Merge himself. Not only did he have the jumper, but he had a jacket and a hat this year as well. He is the Gather Round mascot.
He literally is Mr.
Gather Round. Pretty cool. I think that's already 3.
It is.
And are we keeping track?
Yeah. So the sign, crap, I think it expired on his Instagram story, but it was, oh no, here it is. Play every team's song.
I mean, you've talked about playing almost every team's song before.
Yes. Did you ever make that edit?
No, not yet, because...
Fuck, do it.
Well, Collingwood haven't lost since you mentioned.
Yeah, because you didn't do it. Your fault.
Ethan and Benjamin Castle are Americans. Watching the Footy.
Liam Ryan saying, kick it my way, I want to jump over the pack, and here he comes! Ryan!
This is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman!
Got the handball off to Myers. Myers looking for the lead of Stengel. Gee, they're good. Gee, they're sharp. Razzle dazzle Rioli.
Oh, who else? McDonald!
From inside the centre square. Boys kick the goal. Boys kick the goal. From inside the centre. I can't believe that.
The total attendance for the round was 221,853. Yes, that's lower than last year, but also remember, 1 fewer game at the Adelaide Oval, 1 more at Mount Barker. I imagine next year, instead of having 2 at Mount Barker, 1 of those will be moved to Wine Country.
On Mount Barker, love games at small local venues, but it is not made for TV. Mount Barker makes for some really, really bad camera angles. You know, I like that the AFL isn't just going after TV stuff, but there
are ways to improve it. I saw something online about maybe considering drone shots for future games there for better angles.
Or, there's more you can do with setting up camera platforms and stuff. Anyway, I think there's a lot you can do to make it better. But for now, yeah, I'm glad that, like I said, the priority is on giving them the best in-person experience instead of focusing on the best TV experience.
And by the way, having the best in-person experience does not mean having a showdown in the round.
I mean, I'd still be okay with that. I think it would be fun, but at the same time,
it would take the special South Australian-ness out of it. And also
so much would, but
also with the 2 Adelaide clubs playing separately, you're able to spread out the crowds better.
There are arguments for and against it. I like your idea, though, of what we should do for the Gather Round next year.
Well, we'll talk about that later on, but our plan, once all the trades and everything are finalized, well, before the draft comes in, I guess, but after everything else, is to go through and come up with our preferred round 1 and Gather Round fixtures. But that's something for the future Castle brothers, the present day Castle brothers, your past tense Castle brothers, because you're not listening to this live. We'll start getting into the fixtures, beginning with Adelaide 8-15-63 defeated by Melbourne 10-18-78 on Thursday night. The scoreline here, the final score, is deceiving. Melbourne did what they often did the past few years, and it's just lock things down defensively in the 4th and not really care about scoring a percentage when the priority was more on preserving the win. They were also less accurate in general this game. They'd been one of the most accurate teams in the competition up to this round and shot 10-18 total, or scored that total. A little bit being rushed there. This wasn't a game that Melbourne thoroughly dominated, and Stephen May clearly just needed 1 week off, which is incredible in itself. Played through the pain really well.
Noticed he was wincing a couple times, but fought through it just incredibly well. I was really impressed.
And then Jake Lever had been hurt as well, and playing through things last week also against Port, and didn't get the ball a lot. but was consistently their best defender. I cannot imagine what that team would look like without the two of them in there.
Also, Judd McVie.
You're finally noticing?
I think everyone really noticed this game. He was awesome. 20 disposals, 10 intercepts. In terms of the expected performance versus normal performance, this was easily his best game.
Trusted a lot with being the first or second kick from the back and performed in that job pretty well. Maybe a bit less of a one-on-one assignment. You usually see him taking that on smaller forwards, but with May and Lever playing injured, he had some more responsibility in terms of movement on the ground, out of defense. Going back to Stephen May briefly, he matched up against Taylor Walker, and yeah, he won that, and also just Walker has been incredibly quiet to start the season. Did he just fall off a cliff?
I don't know how much of it's an age thing, how much is just, it's 4 games, but you need more out of him than 1-2 off 15 disposals. That's
concerning.
Yeah, that's not what this team's forward structure needs. This Adelaide team has way too much forward talent to perform like this. Josh Rochelle as well. Like, what's going on, man? He was 1-2 off 14.
Rankin 1-3 off 18.
Yeah, at least Rankin got a bunch of the balls, just missed a few. Okay, Jake Saligo drew some praise. Luke Curvis was at full forward and didn't do much.
That was a weird one there. I think that Saligo did help solve a lot of the problems that they had on the inside and should have been playing there from the start this season. I think Saligo and probably Mark Keane earned the most praise out of this. Keane, we gave the polished turd vote. The Cork native led the way in defense with 11 intercepts and 10 marks. We also give him bonus points for being profane on national TV.
Relax. Have a look at him. 50 metres, umpire descent.
You had to slow it down and listen to it a bunch of times to figure out what he was saying.
No, I only had to go back once. Maybe I'm just more used to Irish accents than you are.
Probably, I don't know, but it was funny. My issue with the Crows...
Issue? Singular?
Yeah, it's multiple issues. First off, the vibes suck. This looks like a team in need of serious changes. Body language, competitiveness, crowd energy, everything. Like, remember last year in the opening game, how much energy they had and how much energy the crowd had? And there was like none of that for most of this game. They were down at one point 71-38 in the third. You know, entering this year, the thought was, all right, they've got a good forward group, a good midfield. Defense may be a concern. Defense has not been that bad.
No, relatively all right, considering the pieces they lost. Nick Murray still recovering from his ACL. Tom Duday ACL and gone. But Keena stood up in the back. I'm still liking Michael Ennie, of course, and Josh Worrell. So there's a younger-ish defensive group there that I like. It's a matter of getting things together in terms of the kicking into 50. That was a big issue. They highlighted this on Fox Footy postgame, and I'm glad they did. You know, we talk about disposal efficiency inside 50, but one of the other things that doesn't get enough attention, and I wish this were on more websites, is retention of inside 50s. Most notably for kicking, of course. Melbourne had 42 kicks inside 50, and they retained 24 of them, 57%. That's pretty good, actually. Adelaide, of the 48 kicks inside 50, Ethan, you guess how many of them were retained?
I remember seeing it, but it was low. What did you say Melbourne's number was again?
Melbourne was 57%, 24-42.
Adelaide, I'm going to say it was about half that.
Yeah, 16 retained, 1/3.
Yeah, that's not good.
Poor decision-making in terms of forward half kicks in general. It's interesting that it happens against a team that had that problem and has really solved it since, looking for shorter options, looking to change angles. That's something that the teams have been very good at to start this year.
If you're looking on a points per game basis, the Crows have only allowed the 6th fewest points per game. They're allowing a little under 76 per game, which is not bad. They've only allowed one team over 80. The issue is they've only broken 70 points once. They are the second lowest scoring team, and that's only 7 points better than the Eagles and 35 points worse than the next lowest, which is Hawthorn.
Their bottom 3 in terms of accuracy have taken the hardest shots in the league. This is from data from Liam Crowhurst, Crow Data Sci on Twitter. Amazing resource. And also have the fewest marks inside 50 thus far this season. They have 26 through 4 games. The Eagles entered the round 3 games with 27. The problem is mostly the delivery, I would say, even more so than the difficulties with shots themselves. obviously better delivery means better set shots, and it all can kind of come together. Hopefully Saligo can be part of that solution and maybe slide Rochelle a bit further upfield, take him out of more of a goal-scoring role, let Riken have that dynamic part of his game. That's a tough thing to go for right now, especially with some of the bigger bodies out. Would love to see them try and give Harry Schoenberg a go in the middle again. I know that he and Saligo usually were mutually exclusive last year. Maybe that can change. Oh yeah, and Nick still refuses to give Billy Dowling a debut. That's more of an issue to me at this point than not giving Dan Curtin one.
Let me add to this. You talked about their entries from midfield being an issue. I think just their midfield structure as a whole is an issue. Honest question. What does Rory Laird do besides rack up fantasy stats?
What does Matt Crouch do besides put on as many short kicks in as much time as he can?
A motherfucking, damn, ham, a fucking sandwich.
Jordan Dawson, I don't understand what he's doing. Honestly, the only midfielder on this team that I have legitimately liked
is Saligo.
Never mind, he's kind of been listed as a fullback, but in terms of just play through the midfield, Brody Smith.
Yeah, he's definitely...
Everything he does has a purpose. He's had long, accurate kicks. He's clearly thinking a kick ahead or a handball ahead, and the other guys just aren't.
And when David King talked with Matthew Nix this week, King said, this is from SEN on Friday, Fireball Friday, he knows what's going wrong, but knowing it and fixing it are two different things.
Yeah, that's not good.
Look, King's predictions in terms of ladder and flags, all that, garbage. In-game analysis, usually spot on.
Quickly, couple positive things for Melbourne out of this game. Oliver had a quieter game, but both he and Petrarca have such good, one-handed field marking ability that was on display a few times. I really liked watching that.
Smooth in general. You see it more out of Petrarca because he's able to get out more, but they're smooth in the open field, and that was a real factor both of these weeks. And one of the reasons why I didn't end up considering Saligo for the polished turd was because, yeah, he did get beaten by Oliver. So Jordan Dawson started as a decent tag. He started on Oliver, but when Jack Viney started getting really hot, he moved over to him. That moved Saligo over to Oliver, and Oliver won those contests twice en route to assists.
One other guy who was a little bit off in this game, someone who I like, but didn't play well in this game, I thought Max Michelani just looked a little flat-footed and slow and behind the game at times.
Just like a step off. Oh yeah, one last thing about this game. You know, Kazi Pickett can do brilliant things, had a couple great moments early, and then decided, now's the time for me to put my elbow into somebody's head. This is the third time he's gone for somebody's head in 27 games. And why are the Demons challenging this when, honestly, it should be 2 games instead of 1? I don't know why the AFL did away with, points that rack up for repeat offenders, because this is a case where Kazi needs to be sat down for more. And we're Kazi appreciators here most of the time.
Yes, I really like him, but at this point, a reputation as someone who makes a lot of dirty plays and gets suspended a lot is deserved. Now, to say it, got to get better about it.
Now, what I want them to do in his absence is give Caleb Windsor a shot on the inside, honestly.
We've seen him so much on the outside.
Maybe have him move in a little bit, have him and Kate Chandler trade off at times, because look, it's going to be more and more difficult for Windsor to have that steady time on the outside once Lockie Hunter comes back in. So over the next couple weeks, pick your spots, Simon Goodwin, and try to see what Windsor can do in a more inside role.
Brisbane 16-16, 112, defeating North Melbourne 6-6-42.
This was a game. It was tied after a quarter. Okay, I'll give it that last year. It was a 6-goal game already. Well, 5.5 technically after 1, and it did not get better.
Positives for North, short list. Charlie Coben got tested a lot and honestly played pretty well. Beat a couple times, but he got targeted so much that only getting beat a couple times is actually pretty good. He gets the polished turd for the week out of this game.
Yeah, and I was asking in our preview, is there a way to get him in there into the tall mix? And the answer was yes, at the expense, surprisingly enough, of SA native Toby Pink. Didn't think he would get dropped going back to his home state, but I like the wake-up call.
On Brisbane's side, interesting that Charlie Cameron hardly got anything.
And he's also been just one of the poorest shots on goal thus far this year,
which is just very unlike him. It was a better game for Eric Hipwood, but the two guys who really made it happen up front were Joe Danaher, despite kicking 5-4 off 12 marks, could have easily been like an 8 or 9 goal game. At least 7, realistically, because there were a couple tough shots, but he could have easily had at least a 7.
But yeah, Danaher on the tall end, I think I know who you're going to talk about in terms of small play.
Kai Lohman, who was so good at ground level, just creating havoc, moving quickly, quick disposals, setting guys up. He did it more from like the outside edge of the forward 50 than from, say, like right around the goalposts, but I really liked this game. It's been tough to get him into a consistent role. I think there's a blueprint for what you want to do with him moving forward out of this game.
I have to say it, #foreseen.
Why does that need a hashtag?
Something from hockey community on Twitter and elsewhere. But Kai Lohman was my sleeper pick for this year. Hadn't gotten much opportunity. He was in 6 games in 2023 and was the sub 3 times. Outside pressure role and then kicking inboard is something that he'd always been able to do. And it was a matter of whether or not he could maybe improve his goal accuracy. And 2-1 from 18, I think he's on the right track with that. Had a goal last week as the sub as well, and hopefully he's able to stick in the 22. I think the way to do this is kind of back off from having Dane Zorko spend so much time forward, maybe start him further back, and let Lohman be one of those link guys, like linking up for guys like Kalamachi on the outside maybe. We're big in the Kalamachi Appreciation Club here as well, I think.
Also, if you were listening to what I said about the Crows and how disappointing a performance it was out of Rory Laird, I think Josh Dunkley kind of went in the opposite direction. I thought the first couple weeks, he hadn't done much of anything despite having a lot of touches. I think he totally changed that in this game. I thought he was really effective, just steering play out of the middle. Ended up with 7 clearances, 10 score involvements off of his 31 disposals. Easily his best game of the year. The most impressed I've been with him by far.
And not just 10 score involvements, 5 score launches, which meant he did a lot, not just, clearing out for the sake of clearing out, but targeting things very well. Getting a little bit of time. And yeah, that might have been a bit easier against North, but he still got that time in there. I was surprised Brisbane didn't gang up on Luke Davies-Uniacke as other teams might. Davies-Uniacke still with a strong 14 contested possession and 7 clearance showing, but they overwhelmed him so much elsewhere that it really didn't matter in the end. And when you're able to convert your midfield success into plus 40 inside 50s, plus 18 marks inside 50, you're not going to lose those sorts of games, even if you're the Crows and go completely cold for a half. Ethan, ever seen a game where somebody gets into the teens for disposals, but has more tackles?
No, but that was Tom Powell in this game. This is one of my favorite weird stat lines. Definitely the weird stat line of the week. I think the week earlier had to be Riley Bonner.
With his however many turnovers, like, what was it, 16?
I think it was 17.
And more than a kilometer gained. I think that was the first kilometer gained of the year.
Yes.
Now, Powell obviously had the tag on Lachie Neale in the second half, and Neale ended up being subbed out late third quarter, I believe, as a precautionary sub. A little bit of concern around his ankle. Should be fine, but already well past the winning threshold at three-quarter time, up 54 at three-quarter time. There's no reason to risk it there. You could... It's not a victory cigar sub because there was a legitimate injury concern, but
more management, I think.
Yeah, but that goes along the lines of medical still. But Powell did have the tagging job. I wish he'd had it from the beginning because I would have loved to have seen how that might have shifted things around. Maybe it would have just meant Dunkley could have cooked even more. Maybe Hugh McCluggage could have done even more. McCluggage accumulated in this game, I'd say, whereas Dunkley was the more effective mover.
I didn't think McCluggage was special, but he did get a lot of the ball. One other minor thing I noticed in this game. When you think of like guys with an edge on the Lions, you think Zorko and then maybe Neale. I want to throw Darcy Gardner onto that list. I saw a couple times he was like taking extra shots at dudes and stuff, and it's just I hadn't thought about him much in that light before, and I think it'll be just fun to keep an eye on moving forward.
Speaking of Gardner, he also kicked a goal. His 5th career goal, his first since the second Q Clash of 2019. Swamp said that it was 1,328 Brisbane goals apart.
Wow.
And having Gardner and Jack Payne both there on the oval at the same time was nice. And Gardner being able to flex forward was able to see, a bit kind of differentiation from him, because I still think Payne belongs in there as a top defender. And he did pretty good job, as well as anyone could do on Nick Larkey, I'd say. Now,
asymmetry of the 16-16 to 6-6 is an underrated part of this game.
Also underrated is that it was 112 to 42, and then later that same day at the Adelaide Oval, it was 111-42. Port Adelaide 17-9, defeating Essendon 6-6. But before we get into the meat of this game, I think we need to address the bigger social concern out of this game, that being Jeremy Finlayson's use of a homophobic slur. He admitted to it. He and the club put out, the appropriate message, and it wasn't delayed. But I think, some people are confused as to why this is such a problem, or if maybe that's just kind of the echo chamber in which some footy fans find themselves. There was a lot of discourse about how this could be compared and contrasted with Hex Walker using a racial slur a couple years back.
Let me compare and contrast them. They're both bad.
Yes, and I think the difficulty for some people is that they can't quite understand how it can automatically be demeaning and hurtful and, I would say, abusive and wrong, even if the target of that word doesn't fall under a sexual orientation other than straight. Obviously, it's not our place to out anybody. People were asking, how do you know if he's homosexual? What if he's not? Okay, exactly. The delicate part there is that this is something that really by default you cannot see. And as I said, it's not our place or anybody's place except for the first party to come to any conclusions about their sexuality, which is something that is fluid in the first place. I've seen enough people be traumatized and really just wrecked for a while by being outed in public and in private. And I would not wish that upon even the worst of my enemies. And then when it comes to, the greater effect on the game, no active male VFL, AFL player has ever come out. And if this language persists and this culture kind of silently remains there, then people will feel pressure to remain closeted. And maybe people in the LGBT community who are wanting to pursue a footy dream may feel dissuaded by the persistence of this issue. So it is something that needs to be stamped out regardless and right away.
I don't have much else to add. I think, other than just, there are probably very few people who are listening to this whose opinions will differ based off of what I can tell. And I don't think we're going to be able to change many people's opinions, but we needed to at least mention it in some capacity.
Yeah, and I had enough people confide things in me that I felt decent enough about it to speak up.
So as for the game itself, Port kind of ran through them in the second quarter. It was a 39-7 second quarter. Fourth quarter, for good measure, was 26-1.
Essendon had two separate periods of 30 minutes or more time on without a single shot. And it was from midfield domination, as well as Port Adelaide keeping their one-on-one structure. Firstly, Essendon played really slowly. They played on from 2 of their 21 uncontested marks in the second quarter, I believe. Their transition just totally dried up. They finally got a little bit more control of the pace in the third, but by then it was already too little too late. Just Port keeping their structure was all that this game required. And some of that structure, Jeff White, former player, of course, highlighted this with a nice analytical video that you can see on Twitter. They allowed themselves a lot of space to run through the center square. They had people line up very much on the edges of the center square. Zach Butters did this in particular. And Essendon were never the wiser to crowd the ruck contest, be right off that circle. That's something that I would love for Port's next opponents to do, is try to make just the actual center of the ground, right around that center circle, much more congested. Are Justin Longmuir and Craig McRae brave enough to try that? I could see McRae doing it more than Longmuir.
Well, I think Longmuir probably will just trust his normal system, and I understand why. Connor Rosie was excellent in this game.
Rosie and Jason Horn-Francis both. You want to talk about speed and finesse killing. that was Rosie with his 3 goals, 2 from 36 disposals and 657 meters. Some ridiculous kicks in that too.
He pretty much dominated the first half.
Yeah, his 3 goals were all in the first quarter, actually. And the third one was just this excellent snap where Kane Farrell helped knock down Ben Mackay's kick and Rosie took care of things from there. He's the first captain this year to have 20 and 3 goals in a full game. He did it in the first half. And Jason Horne-Francis outdid all of Essendon in the center square. Jason Horne-Francis had 7 center clearances. Essendon,
6.
Yeah, Horne-Francis really dominated the second half. Rosie dominated the first half. Both were really good. Rosie was named player of the round by Damian Barrett. I think that's fair. I think the rest of the votes, he kind of messed up.
fire away.
Petrarca 4. All right. Green 3, as in Toby. Really 2. Libba 1. Libba should have been at least 4. That's insane. How do you watch and not... I mean, we'll get to that game in a bit, but...
Because they lost.
I don't care. He was best player. Also, while I have your attention, from AFL Central, the bounce low. Who has the most bounces so far this season?
I've seen this. Shea Bolton.
Yes, I mean, he has the advantage of an extra game, I think.
Yeah, as of now. So let's talk about that more when Richmond comes up.
And then who has the most disposals without a bounce, who also seems to have the advantage of an extra game?
That's one that I'm not sure.
Heaney, followed by Petrarca.
2 of the best players in the league right now. Maybe the solution is just don't bounce it. Maybe Max Gawn was onto something all along.
Anyway, this was a bad game for Essendon. I thought Jade Gresham was good when he had the ball.
3 goals. He has shed his reputation of 1 goal per game for his career. 58 interchanges despite being walloped is surprising to say the least. I wonder what Brad Scott's rationale was. That honestly would have been my first question.
And then Ben Mackay did a good job on Charlie Dixon, about the only thing that went right defensively.
Now, I thought there was going to be a lot more positive to say about the third game than about the fourth. When I saw the West Coast Eagles were wearing their 1995 Navy throwbacks, which look great, by the way.
I do think the actual Eagle head logo now is better than that.
Yes, but I think the actual Navy itself looked great. I was thinking, geez, this looks like a 2010s big game.
Nah, it's more like, well, Sydney's red is too light. I think it looks more like, I don't know, Nebraska versus West Virginia or Michigan or something.
Well, regardless, my thought, having gone to Cal, was big game against Stanford. And in the 2010s, Stanford had a 9-game win streak from 2010 to 18, the longest in the rivalry's history. Drax, Cal sklounced in a lot of those games.
Drax. Sklounced.
With the help of guys like
Johnny Dykes.
Well, yeah, Cal didn't help their own cause, even if they had some excellent pros during that time. But Andrew Luck, Toby Gerhart, among other Stanford greats were in there. And I thought the Eagles were going to look like 2013 Cal, which went 1-11 despite an excellent first-year quarterback. How fitting.
Who was the one? Do you remember?
Portland State.
It was, which I knew the score of that game. I just forgot who it was against. 37-30. They gave up at least 30 points in every game.
This sounds like a very good parallel then for these Eagles, especially with that Cal quarterback ending up the number 1 pick, that being Jared Goff. If I have one complaint about the Eagles throwbacks, yes, throwbacks are sacred. You can't alter them. But I think the white trim is just unnecessary and it makes the gold not look as great. So honestly, just go 2 colors. Take out the white.
That's what they did in Zimbabwe, and look what happened to their economy.
Damn!
So West Coast Eagles, 11-12-78, defeated by the Sydney Swans, 15-14, 104. I lead this game irked because this game was there.
Was it really? I don't think it really was. I think the talent rose to the top in the second half. From an Eagles perspective,
I think somewhat that was the case, but Sydney definitely didn't help their own cause, and you could really feel throughout the whole game Dean Rampy's absence in defense. The structure was much less defined. There wasn't any other tall who could really match up with anybody like him. Even Lewis Melican had some rough moments in there.
So imagine what would have happened if Oscar Allen was healthy, in other words.
Or if Jack Darling could just be kind of his past self, or just a few things in there. Or if Jack Petrocelli didn't get cute and try to give Locke Rawlinson his first goal, that was a don't come Monday moment.
I mean, that said, I don't think that decided the game or anything, so let's not... I think you're blowing that out of proportion. It was dumb and it was frustrating, but it did not decide the game. What decided the game was the simple matter of Sydney being the better team.
That's hard to deny there, and Isaac Heaney and Errol Golden went rampant. The Eagles' last chance to get back into things, middle of the fourth, could have gotten it back to a 21-point game there. They were going with the breeze. There was potential there had Petrocelli just done the normal thing, and pretty much immediately they turned around and Isaac Heaney burned everybody to really put the game out of reach. Heaney, by the way, was given the Best on Ground trophy. They did bring the trophy for this rivalry out to Mount Barker, the Gunshell Gallantry Trophy, because this game is played in honor of the victims of the HMAS Sydney 2 being sunk. And people were confused by that, but they'd had that trophy in there for a while.
I didn't have a ton of thoughts. Okay, but I'll give mine. You want me to give mine first?
That might actually be better. Okay, or are you going to start with Harley Reid because Harley Reid?
Yeah, I thought this was much better out of him. I think he picked his spots instead of just trying to run over guys, did a better job breaking out of tackles. And then you see what makes people so excited about him is that he's got pretty good midfield skills in a backline defender's body.
And in terms of the breaking of the tackles, 7 of them in his 4th game. The all-time single-game record for the league is 8, shared by Luke Davies-Uniacke and Dustin Martin. And he shed some tackling beasts in there like James Rowbottom. Now, he's got the size advantage on Rowbottom, but that hasn't stopped Rowbottom from anybody in the past. So I think he just picked his moments a lot better, time runs better, and is growing a lot in that respect. Also, you know how big of a Brady Hoff fan I am. Down week in comparison, round 3 against Cody Waitman. Did a great job limiting Tom Pathley. I think into the 3rd quarter, well into it, maybe even into the 4th. Pathley was limited to 4 touches, and Hoff is continuing to do better in terms of ground play, and I would love to see him get more involved in some of the rebound as well, because remember, he was initially cast as a wing, and we loved him there before realizing, oh shit, this guy's got real small forward capability too. I'm hoping that his versatility can continue to show, especially without Jermaine Jones. I really would have liked Hoff to be more involved in the rebound.
And Jermaine Jones was pretty bad a week earlier.
Exactly. So this felt like something that could have been very natural. In terms of the older side of the list, Elliot Yeo, please stay healthy. You're actually good, and people are finally realizing that again. Imagine if Dom Sheed could get back to health as well. He's currently rehabbing in the Waffle. Jeremy McGovern, this team would be nothing without you.
I think right now the 3 best backline defenders so far this year, and this is just fun with small sample sizes, McGovern, Stewart. Well, Stewart 1, Taylor 2, McGovern 3, and then Cal Wilkie 4. Last year, Wilkie was clearly in the top 3.
Hence his All-Australian nod, very much deserved.
Yeah, this year, though, so far at least.
Well, McGovern has been tested so much that it's very, very easy to see. And especially at age 31 and with a lot of injuries behind him, it's impressive how he's been able to keep up. I still would have liked for him to have been set forward in those desperation moments, maybe have Darling go to the back, just shake things up, see what he can do. He's had some good kicking ability before. He's been an after the siren hero even. So I wished Adam Simpson had been a little bit more daring and more willing to challenge the corridor. Harley Reid kind of did that on his own, but few followed. I want Reid to do that. I want Locke Rawlinson, who got in as the sub when Luke Edwards did his hamstring for his debut, to be involved with that. And also anything to keep the ball out of Liam Duggan's hands, by comparison, would be a good thing. He got 2 coaches' votes, so either that was Adam Simpson being batshit crazy, or John Longmire rightly acknowledging him as the 4th best Sydney Swan on the field.
I don't know what to tell you on that one.
What I can tell you is he's a co-captain, acting sole captain without Allen. He won't be taken out. Fuck.
I will say this. Rawlinson probably deserves a full game. He looks solid.
Probably. He does. Obviously missed his first couple shots. Would have loved for him to get it, being a native of that whole Hills area, but provided just some of that burst and that inside play that I've wanted from this team all along, and we haven't gotten nearly enough of yet this year. It's not rocket science. We usually don't do 5 games before our break.
Yeah, I think, though, we're going to talk more about the Final Four.
I think there's a lot to talk about in this one, too, because it was...
Sure, I think the ending, yes, but otherwise not really.
Just a weird flow in this one.
Yeah, Fremantle 9-9-63, defeated by Carlton 10-13-73. This was a one-score game, despite the final margin.
The Blues have broken their Adelaide Oval maiden in perhaps the strangest way possible on their 8th attempt.
Who gets the right of prima nocta?
Everybody knows by now, James Aish's forearm made contact with that ball. It's very tough to see in real time. I do not envy the position in which umpires at the top level of any sport find themselves. Obviously, that mark was paid. Matt Cottrell, who had been just doing Matt Cottrell things all game, he'd been highlighted in Calatumi's great article on the AFL website about saluting the half forwards during the week. Cottrell kicked his 3rd to give him the lead with 40 seconds left, and then we hear more whistles. And Jordan Clark gets assessed a free against him for dissent. Clearly there was profanity in there, and Freo are trying to spin it all sorts of ways that sound like little kids trying to prevent their parents from spanking them.
Well, I was impressed that Justin Longmuir said, we can't let that happen,
which is the right response.
I would not be so polite.
The right response to avoid a fine and just the right message to bring into future games.
Here's my thing. It was a tough call in real time. The best angle, honestly, came from one of the Marmalade guys, a couple 100 feet away.
200 meters, maybe. He was on the other side of the oval.
Yeah, and yet that was probably the best angle.
And from that far away and from just that straight-on angle, you're able to see the deviation a lot better. I don't think anybody in Neon was in a great spot to make the call. The call was made.
It was a difficult call, and it sucks.
Were Freo completely robbed? It does feel pretty strong, especially with 40 seconds having been left, but they done all right in patches, in clearances during that game, and I almost would have backed that in at the very end to try to get the last one. I feel like in terms of just overall team games, though, I feel like, for some reason, I just feel like the right team did still win. I'm not sure how to quantify it.
I don't know about that.
I think Carlton were able to answer in terms of just overall strategy more often, because they started with a lot of undefined kicks out of defense. They had basically no rebound ability in the first half, but they forced Freo to the inside, just to dirtier spots in the second half. And that was where some of their bigger bodies ended up winning out. 12 contested possessions each for Patrick Cripps and George Hewitt. Huge to their cause there. I think their pure defense also stood up a bit better, with Jacob Wiedering leading the way, and Brody Kemp doing just fine on return. 14 marks and 21 disposals. He'd been tried at forward in the reserve, so I thought he had been a good pick for a sub, and you agreed. But with Caleb Marchbank out, Kemp slid in, and I think he's got that spot now. I remember Kemp and Jordan Boyd had been fighting for spots last year, but Boyd has done a lot more, a bit further downfield into the half-back line, on the flanks, also getting some pressure on. And I don't know, maybe you could even try Boyd a little bit further down if some of the forward health isn't great now that Lockie Fogarty is being suspended a game.
Yeah, Fogarty kind of launched into Nat 5. I'm surprised he only got 1 game. I thought it could have been a second.
I think because it was still a football play, and the contact itself with it slipping high was reminiscent enough of some other incidents this year, even off-play stuff like Mason Redmond. I actually called the 1 game there. And in all that, Fogarty ended up worse out of it, because I think he ended up with a sore wrist out of it. I didn't have a problem with that. The Blues straight up accepted that suspension.
So going back to the call, we've already had way too many reviews, and that's already been a discussion. Maybe there should be more things reviewable within the final 2 minutes, though. I would be okay with that. I'd still rather not. This was a call that in real time, I thought it was touched, but I wasn't certain. I would have probably said, without being shown anything in slow motion, the slow motion angles they showed on the broadcast didn't tell me shit. I probably would have thought 70%, maybe 80% chance it was touched. I probably would have erred on that side, but I could have seen how it could have gone the other way. Just as for the game itself, I thought Fremantle had totally controlled the pace, and style.
In the first half, I would say. So I think
they did the whole way, really. Even though Carlton did end up kind of leveraging momentum against them, it was very much played on the Dockers' terms the entire way.
I think the Blues' response, though, is what pleased me so much with their game. And I think they had maybe some better individual performers that helped move things their way when it mattered. One player about whom I was really curious entering the year for the Dockers, though, and was one of the highest scoring purely based on possessions and fantasy in this game, was Jeremy Sharp, who got a whole lot of time uncontested on the outside. Coming over from the Suns, I hadn't really formed much of an opinion on him, and he has taken up that wing spot. Had a goal and 7 marks in this game as well. Would love to see him get challenged more in these next couple, and I think Port will be up to that task on Saturday night. So obviously Dockers staying over.
Tom DeConing did a good job minimizing Luke Jackson's impact. This was the first time we've said, you could say, man, it really would have helped to have Sean Darcy.
And he might be available this week.
Convenient. This is a frustrating loss for Freo. As for the call against Clark, I hope what he said was worth it, because normally I don't say, oh, you can't call that at that stage. I think games need to be officiated the same way from start to finish. But extra emotion in that situation would be completely understandable and warranted. Within the context of saying the women's Final Four, you have some people say, oh, you can't call that moving screen on UConn, on the final play of the game. Well, it's a moving tree. It's a moving screen in the first minute. It's a moving screen in the last minute. But I think with an emotion thing, I think it's different. Pure in-game play versus out-of-play behavior, something reactionary. Look, we don't have the audio itself. I wish we did.
Well, I think it almost at this point is necessary because
there's so much talk about it.
If Jordan Clark just completely went off the rails like Daniel Larson did on the same day,
I will bomb your house till the day you fucking die!
Then yeah, you'd call a free kick and then some for that.
Bomb you! Bomb you! Bomb you! Bomb you! Kill you! Kill you! Kill you!
Benjamin, 78% of our listeners are between 18 and 35 years old, so they probably want to start a podcast like we did.
How do you know that number, Ethan?
Thanks to the analytics we have for Spotify for Podcasters.
Formerly known as Anchor, sorry Freo fans, Spotify for Podcasters has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. No fancy software needed.
It's so easy you can edit it while drunk.
And Spotify for Podcasters doesn't just allow you to upload to Spotify, you can also distribute your podcast on platforms like Apple, Stitcher, and more, just like we do.
Best of all, it's completely free.
Not only is it free, you can even make money from listener support or ad revenue. Hint, hint.
Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to podcasters.spotify.com to get started today. You know the drill. We're on Twitter at Americans Footy. We are also on Instagram and YouTube at Americans Footy. Personally, I am on Twitter at Castle Media.
I am on Twitter at BenjaminHK01, and I recently announced on there I am entering the transfer portal with 1 year of eligibility remaining.
And Brian Harambe is on Instagram at CatmanGrian. Before we continue, I do want to mention something that happened in the aftermath of the Freo game.
The triple montage, triple montage, triple montage.
Yes. We talked before about the montage.
Yes, we have.
If you don't know about it, go back and listen to, I don't remember which episode.
I'll briefly just say it is a montage of the 2013 Sydney Roosters NRL Premiership season, and we got that 3 times because there was a lot of time to kill after the broadcast. Because
it might have been, was it 2.5 or did we get 3 full? I forget.
It was 3 full ones. Now, the weird part is they had a second montage.
Yeah, we saw it a couple weeks ago. We talked about this one just a couple weeks ago.
I'm not sure if we did, but they have an English Rugby League montage as well, this being Wigan Warriors for the Super League. And I think it was a more recent montage. I'm not sure, though. Well, actually, no, it was probably the same year. They were also champions in 2013.
Yeah. And we did not get that one. We just got the same one a second and third time, which was funnier, I think.
Man, why do we not have like a 2013 Hawks one then?
I'm glad we don't, but it is funny. Anyway, I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention the playlist that was used after goals this weekend. Oh, one other thing that I'll probably mention again next week because they're back at home, but you know how there are purists that always get all mad over music after goals? How come they don't get mad over the Suns MC or whatever? after every goal, because that's way more annoying.
And also, I missed the trumpet this week. I can't tell if the general perception of Never Tear Us Apart from non-Port fans is good, but they have mixed. I mean, they have made it their own, and I love it. And
I love it too.
I don't care if they're playing the Eagles or the Cats or whoever when we're there. We will both belt that out.
Oh yeah, it's great. I was disappointed though, like on the playlist that we didn't have Fly Away, because like 2020 and 21, you had Fly Away play after a first quarter goal in just about every game.
Yeah, there was no Lenny at all. No, Are You Gonna Go My Way either, which was surprising.
But we did get that annoying One Republic song.
Are you talking about Counting Stars?
No, I think I Ain't Worried or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's really annoying.
And then a lot of Freaks, a lot of some other EDM stuff. The Buzz was in there. Which
I have no issue with the other song choices, but got really tired of that One Republic song. And just, again, the lack of Fly Away is a problem.
it felt strange.
Before we get into our final 4 games, Benjamin, I am challenging you really quick to the Americans Watching the Footy Music Challenge.
Okay.
So here's the thing. We are on an unfair playing field. You are much more musically knowledgeable than I am. So I have given myself a 2-day advantage. I have been planning this out and setting the parameters for 2 days. And now you have to ad-lib on the spot your Tasmania Devils Club song. Go, right now.
Oh gosh.
Go, now.
Geez, I've had a couple ideas.
Okay, just say one.
I've had a couple ideas when it comes to like putting up the college fight song.
I don't need an explanation. Just say.
Well, it'd probably start, Devils, we're all behind you, raise high the green and gold. And, I would have a hard time like fitting the rest in with the Maryland song, but at the end, you'll have you can do a spell out, TASMANIA, Devils all the way.
Okay, well, I have a better one.
But I wanted to go like very traditional with this, that's why. Or you could just like go a completely dark direction because Devils, but we've talked about how the University of Maryland fight song would be a really good template for one, as would Texas and Michigan.
Yeah, I have a better one. Do you hear the Devils sing? We are victorious once again, playing with courage and commitment you'd expect from Tasmanians.
Melbourne Rebels fan Ethan Castle.
Yes, 4-3 now. I am not paying for Flow Rugby, but I am watching highlights mostly because I like this stupid song so much. I think it's the funniest, dumbest thing. Just beat the Drua. Drua had 2 red cards.
Yeah, both were just completely unnecessary.
One was a headbutt. One was at least during the play. It was an elbow to the head. It was like mid-play. It was still stupid.
Like a professional wrestling elbow drop to the head.
And this week they'll host the Highlanders, who are from...
That's one of the New Zealand teams. Yeah.
But yeah, get out to Amy Park, get around them.
While they're still around.
Mostly just for this song. I think it's the funniest thing. All right, 4 games to go.
Western Bulldogs, 14-7-91. Defeated by Geelong, 14-11-95. 4-0.
For the first time since 2017, I believe.
Must feel pretty good, especially with Ryan Myers putting on such a good show again. He's gotten a lot of praise from Cats fans. Looks like he got the Roll of Honor from the Hoops crew. And that's even with a couple more assists going unclaimed because of inaccurate kicking.
The final score does not tell the story of this game. It was a 28-point lead at one point in the third quarter, and then they started to run out of gas and maybe went into play not to lose mode a little early.
It reminds me a little bit of what Melbourne has done at times the past few years, just relying on their defensive strength.
That said, I think all of this was really well thought out and strategic.
From Chris Scott, yeah. I mean, look, it's Chris Scott against Luke Beveridge. It's going to be advantage Chris Scott every time in terms of coaching. I like how immediately in the round so far, Kane Corns went into that same discussion as well. I thought it was advantage Chris Scott in the coaching box. I forget what exactly he said. Like, I said I thought it was advantage, like, as soon as this fixture was announced. And then that was cemented when Jack McRae was named the sub.
Yeah, if we're doing votes for, like, the Cargie Greaves, which is Geelong's best and fairest, I would probably throw a vote or 2 to Luke Beveridge. I think best Cats goes Myers, Bowes, then we can talk about Cameron, we can talk about Stengel, we can talk about Zach Guthrie, who kicked a goal. We can talk about Ollie Dempsey, who did a lot of good work along the wing. Tanner Bruin, who I thought, even though he didn't have the numbers he had a week earlier, I really liked his game. But yeah, Luke Beveridge did the Cats a solid. 16-point game, and the Dogs played way better once they got him in there. But I think this whole game plan was centered around like only having 5 days of rest.
Which is why Reece Stanley was in instead of Toby Conway. Which
I think in a vacuum, in a one-game basis, I would rather have Conway than Stanley. But
I think Stanley did all right as a whole.
oh no, he neutralized Tim English. The one who wasn't neutralized was Tom Liberatore.
Hello again.
It's funny because after about a quarter, I was thinking like, man, he hasn't done much yet this year. He's looking a little washed. Maybe he's getting towards the end of his run, and then he had 19 clearances.
You literally wrote it on here as 19 fucking clearances.
Yeah, I checked what I did with Rowell from the opening round and just did that. But yeah, he was everywhere. He was awesome. Bontempelli was damn good too, with 35 disposals, 28 contested possessions, and an octopus, which is, of course, 10 tackles. Libba had 9 tackles.
The game flowed through the two of them, and this is an easy 3-vote situation here. I'm
surprised that one of the coaches' votes, Myers and Libba, ended up splitting it 9 each. I thought it should have been, my top 3 would probably go Liberatore, then Bontempelli, then Myers, and then probably Jack Bowes.
Yeah, I was surprised that Myers got that much praise from Luke Beveridge over his own guys.
I'm not complaining. He was really good. He had a couple of assists and could have had more, like we said.
It was just very clear just how this game was going to go with the greater experience and strength in the midfield for that duo in particular. And I think they could have gotten even more of an advantage off that if Jack McRae were in there the whole way. I think Mark O'Connor did a nice job when he came in to quiet Bontempelli a bit in the fourth quarter, which is why I think Liberatore's performance might stick with us a bit more. What are your thoughts on O'Connor being the sub as a tagger?
I would have had him in the main 22, and I probably would have put him in over Zach Tuohy instead of Jai Clark, but I guess because I wanted him in a midfield role, I get it. And I think the idea there was, well, we have a versatile guy as the sub, and then if someone gets hurt, we feel confident throwing him just about anywhere. And if nobody gets hurt, then we can throw him in late and have fresh legs to tag someone like Bont. And that's exactly what they did. So I think that worked out really well. I also thought, again, this was Jack Bowes' best game with Geelong. The improvement that both he and Tanner Bruna made between year 1 and year 2 is a massive testament to, first off, the talent evaluation to get them in the first place and the development to help them improve. Bowes, 2 goals, first multi-goal game of his career, 23 disposals, 9 score involvements. All of a sudden, now he's like, man, we got to keep this guy in the lineup every week, which I never thought I'd be saying.
And it'll be even tougher to figure out what to do once Cam Guthrie comes back.
Patrick Dangerfield probably back this week. I don't know if, do you manage an older guy like Mitch Duncan? Do you Tom Hawkins, although he was goalless this week? If you told me that Hawkins and Cameron would combine for 2 goals, I would not like our chances. Cameron had 27 disposals but kicked 2-4. Hawkins just didn't have a ton of luck and actually got beaten a few forward ruck contests by Sam Darcy, who I thought was excellent. I like this young group of Bulldogs between him, Gallagher, and only guys that really ran wild outside of clearances for the Bulldogs were Gallagher and Latham Vandermeer, who nearly ended up being fatal, but
Gallagher already got the Rising Star nod last week, and even with what Harley Reid did, I would give the Rising Star this week to Sam Darcy for his very clean 3-goal outing.
I have another, actually, wait. The guy I would probably give it to is too old, so.
Exactly. And plus, Reid's going to have some more opportunities this year.
Where Darcy probably will, but no guarantees there.
In terms of defense for the Bulldogs, I want to highlight a couple people. Firstly, Buku Kamis, not as many touches in this game, but still looking like he belongs there at halfback. He was awesome, finally not being shuttled around. It's weird because either this past year or the year before that, he kicked 40-odd goals in the VFL, but at the top level, it's a lot. It just makes more sense just visually and in terms of his body type to happen there at halfback. And then joining him there is a player without whom I don't think the Dogs are nearly as potent, that being Ed Richards.
I didn't think he was that great in this game, honestly. And then I think he played well later in the game.
I think a lot of their best moments, their best transitions from the back do flow through him.
I thought Collins was really good. 10 intercepts, 6 intercept marks. When Cody Wakeman got free, he did a lot, but this was a difference of the better team versus the better individuals. And like my concern to take away from this game is there's a chance that like if you face a good in-form midfielder, the Cats could just get run over. Although I think like they go into Brisbane in a couple weeks, I would think O'Connor has Lachie Neale duties from the start. But it's just like everyone in this midfield was able to step up. Breen had his moments. Parfit had his moments. Towards the back, Zach Guthrie giving you 21 disposals and a goal. Zach Guthrie kicked a goal. There was a lot of depth here, and that's with the current injuries to Rowan, Dangerfield, Guthrie. That's where this team's strength lies right now. And I'm really excited about that. I mentioned maybe Sid Hawkins this week, but I would think, against North, he and Cameron have a chance to go off and each kick like 5+. I don't know how you manage that, but 4-0 is great. Take care of North, get to 5-0, because then the next couple months are going to be a bitch. So it's important to stack wins while you can. It sets you up. We've seen in the last couple of years how much early wins, whether you deserve to win these games or not, how much it matters towards, setting up your later season with managing injuries and stuff and not having to play in desperation mode. And it sets you up for long-term success throughout the season. If you told me at this point 4-0, would have been surprised. I probably would have expected to have, 3.8 wins maybe out of the first 5. I would have said somewhere between 3 and 4, probably closer to 4. But I will take this. I will take this very happily. Also, late in the game in that playing not to lose stretch, Max Holmes dropped back and intercepted well, and Sam DeConing's confidence is starting to grow again. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of him more. All right, Sunday.
We began with, it's officially the Expansion Cup.
You call it the Expansion Extravaganza, and we're right.
Because alliteration and assonance are always better.
And just because anything we say is usually right.
I was thoroughly entertained by just all of Sunday's action, and it started with this second game out at Summit Sports Park. Gold Coast 13-11-89, defeated by Greater Western Sydney 18-9-117. There were 15 top 10 picks playing in this game. The Suns had 8, the Giants had 7. Other oddities, David Swallow was the sub. He became the first AFL player to play at 22 different venues. And here's another one. 3 of the top 10 picks from November scored their first goals this week at Mount Barker. Harley Reid, Jed Walter, Ethan Reid.
Once again, you have the camera angles. They need to do something about that at Mount Barker, because a lot of the game is just tough to follow. But I enjoyed watching it, and I thought the Suns were in this game until early in the fourth quarter, led late in the second. I think from a Suns perspective, they got a lot out of this game. There's no such thing as a good loss unless it's a dead rubber and you're playing for draft position, etc. But I think they're going to get a lot out of this game. They go to play the Giants at GWS in round 19, so that should be end of July-ish. I think you're going to start to see some of these pieces come together. This was a glimpse towards, that finals flag winning list. I don't think they had it at the time Hardwick took over, but I like some of the pieces they brought into this game, and I just took a lot of positive individual observations from both teams. What I love about this game from a Suns perspective is almost everyone had some good and some bad. No one exemplifies that better than Mac Andrew,
who got a surprising amount of love from the coaches, 8 votes to tie for best in the game.
Which I thought was a little much. He did have 16 intercepts, 10 marks, 6 intercept marks, but his kicking still needs a lot of work. He's kind of like a taller, skinnier Asava in that regard.
People do not like your comparison with that.
I think it's pretty accurate, though. They're different types of players in terms of what they do well, but they have similar crazy upside and similar shakiness kicking. Andrew definitely has a bit of a temper, got into it with Toby after what could be a sling tackle. We'll see what happens with the MRO.
Only a fine.
Wow. That tells you how much his reputation has changed very quickly.
The Toby tax is gone. Jury's still out on the Sicily tax.
But the Suns ended up just having the better forward combo. Jesse Hogan is doing what Taylor Walker's supposed to do. 4-1, 15 disposals and 7 marks. And then Toby ended up with 5-1 and 3 assists. He had this late 1-2 sequence, not with handballs, but with kicks with Brent Daniels. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, you don't usually see 1-2s in close quarters with the kicks, so that was a special one. But Hogan has had this full field marking ability for a while and finally getting his goal kicking form back together. This is what the Giants brought him in for, and it took, I think, really 2.5 years maybe, if not longer, to really start seeing it. I also realized he's got that total Josh J. Kennedy stutter runner-up. It's like, I think it was an Italian guy who took like a really shitty penalty kick once. It sounds like maybe it was like Euro 2016 because we made Running Man jokes about it. Yes, but it was bad. But the thing is, it is working for Hogan just as it worked for Kennedy. You're never going to teach someone that way. You see the opposites in just the best tall goal kickers on the Giants. You got Hogan with that crazy thing, and then you got Callum Brown, who was a forward and always has been, just have the simple, straight run up, super fluid, and he's, I think, currently like one of the top 5 most accurate shots in the game. And I think that says a lot about the Giants as a whole in terms of getting him those opportunities, as well as in addition to him having very good fundamentals.
So almost all the observations I wrote down about this game were individual related, though I will say, I think Stephen Cornelio powered the Giants through the middle, easily his best game of the year. On GWS's side, I kind of just went in numerical order. Aaron Cadman had flashes. I thought Lockie Ash was way better than the last few weeks. I'm liking Jacob Ware on the outside. He had one bad turnover, but did pretty well. He has been able to wear some of the contact, no pun intended.
I was going to say that was really bad. And
he's been able to play through some of the contact where he just like got flattened last year. So that's good.
I mean, he didn't also have somebody just absolutely barreling into him like Shane McAdam did in round 1 last year. That's a big difference.
The Suns did a good job taking room away from Tom Green, but he was still efficient. And Ware was so good on the wing that you really didn't notice that it's been a quieter stretch for Toby Bedford. I like how the Suns played Sam Taylor. They had big bodies on him, namely Jed Walter, who at one point was able to take an intercept away from Taylor, and I believe it led to a Ben King goal. That's the type of instinct there that I love seeing, and to see it there from one of your youngest players, your academy grads, in game 2 against maybe the best pure one-on-one player in the league, that's fantastic, and I hope that gets the attention it deserves. I hope Damian Hardwick highlights that in a film session soon. Taylor got a lot better as the game went on. Jake Riccardi played backup ruck and was active altogether.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be more of Aaron Cadman's job coming into the year, and he's had that too. But Riccardi's gotten into better touch since getting more of that ruck time. Almost reminds me of Joe Danaher.
And totally different body.
Oh, exactly. But it's a similar thing where that ruck time ended up energizing him and just getting him more functional all over the ground.
I was surprised that Harry Himmelberg got 2 votes out of this game, because I didn't think he was very good. I thought he was shaky, and it's scary that he hasn't done a lot this year in my eyes. He had 26 disposals and 12 intercepts, but I thought he was shaky still. I think he can be way better. This was Harvey Thomas's first rough game. He got subbed out. That'll happen for a young guy. Xavier O'Halloran didn't do much until late to help him pull away. Like, the Giants were not firing on all cylinders, and when they finally got enough going, they were able to take control, which tells you, like, this team has a high floor. And then Jack Buckley, who I think has really cemented himself as this team's second best defender, I like the way he ranged out of the defensive 50 when needed. He never got lost, stayed on his assignments. Yeah, he had a really good game.
Whereas it's a great tandem there that he has with Taylor. Sam Taylor usually stays on the deepest target, is able to keep that spot there pretty close to the goal square a lot of the time, whereas Buckley can venture outwards still because they've got Taylor there, and Buckley is as strong a mark as Taylor is. So that's really good management there from Adam Kingsley and his staff, even going all the way into the midfield, guys like Ty Connelly working with link-ups there. For all the Suns side, I was satisfied with a lot of the play from the new Croft, including Jed Walter, as we said earlier. He's a big boy. Yeah, he is. Ethan Reed is actually bigger in terms of height, and I cannot believe how well the dude moves for, what is he, 6'8"?
He's big. I forget what size,
I think 202, so 202 or 203, so I think it's 6'8". Yeah,
let's see. Like, this says 202, so
6'7", 6'8" then?
Yeah, about 6'8". I think there's some creativity that they could start to do where maybe he takes more as like a backup ruck or does some forward hit out contests, because he is listed as a ruckman technically.
Well, as Levi Casbolt gets older, and he was not in this game, I immediately saw him read and I thought, oh, Casbolt, your days are numbered.
Hitouts went to the Suns 42-15, but the Giants were just fine on clearances. So crazy. Kieran Briggs can be a lot better than he was in this game. He didn't do a decent job. He ended up with 18 disposals and 9 clearances, but like hitout wise, he struggled.
Okay, it's the follow-up that tends to matter a lot. Yeah, Witz is just kind of that hit ball ruck a lot of the time, whereas I want to see how Reed could match up against a first-rate ruck at times. I don't think you'll see it much, but I'd like for it to happen more. But it's time to talk about that other guy there, the guy you would give the rising star to before I found out, oh, wait, he's already 21, and it's not just because his brother plays for the Cavs.
Sam Pelosi was phenomenal on the wing. I thought he was one of the best players in this entire game.
I mean, we labeled him as Gold Coast's best, our first debut polished turd.
Yes, this is still it's a new award, so it's not like it's that crazy, but
we're going to celebrate our first of everything like we're the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, but we're not douchebags. 77.3% efficiency, 22 disposals, a goal, 8 marks. I thought he was just really smooth along the wing. I mean, I can think of like the individual errors where he had a couple kicks smothered. And I've said many times, if I can recall your specific errors, that means you've had a good game because you didn't have many errors. I thought he was awesome. I think he was easily the brightest of the bright spots. As much as I like Jed Walter, this dude could be a really dominant force, and maybe they bring him into the middle more because he got into the middle at times. I really like this guy. Other individual Suns observations that I didn't get to yet. Sam Flanders had a really busy first half. He was just always around the ball.
And that was because he spent a lot of time at halfback. And when the Giants were able to get into forward 50, he was the one that had a lot of the mop-up time. With Closey coming in there and just more of a midfield shift in general, they shifted Flanders back. And it seemed to work pretty well. Up near the top in terms of possessions for this game, 29 put him, joined second for the game.
Braden Fiorini was good in flashes. I liked sometimes when, he would play towards the outside and then center it. Ben Ainsworth, whenever he's involved, good things happen. It's just a matter of getting him involved more. I did not think this was a good game for Charlie Ballard. I thought he was probably the weakest defender. Structurally, I noticed with Walter up front, Jack Lukosius played farther back than usual.
That was a big thing there, and whereas it's not Lukosius' best position, he does decently enough there.
See, and that's one of those things that I think, when these teams play again, I want to look back at this game. We'll see what sort of changes have been made structure-wise and personnel-wise, because it's not just getting the new guys in. It's about figuring out where the other guys fit in relation. Thomas Berry, when he was clean, he was really good, but his disposal efficiency sucked, and he had a couple bad turnovers, but I've really liked his performance so far this season. Giants did a good job limiting Matt Rowell in the second half. I got to go back and figure out how exactly they did that because he started the game on fire.
Well, Canelio and Rowell was the common matchup there, so if Canelio won, that means Rowell lost.
Sam Collins had pretty good stretch in the middle quarters, but did not start or end the game well.
When you have Collins and Ballard both down, it's going to be a rough day for the Suns in the back.
But again, I'm guessing Hardwick's plan was after a bad game, we'll start getting the young guys in, and then we'll start to shuffle them around and figure out where guys fit. I'm curious how many of these guys they keep in for the coming weeks. I don't think they'll make too many changes list-wise heading into next week when they play what I think is all of a sudden a really interesting game against Hawthorn.
I'll have fun watching that one.
I will go back and watch that one after.
Yeah, but it's the overlap for the round, so we had to parcel that out.
Richmond 9-6-60, defeated by St. Kilda 9-13-67.
The Saints had 5 points up until right before halftime. And what did the Saints do? Well, I'd like to go to what Ross Lyons said here.
Oh, this was good.
What happened is we actually landed a UFO in and walked out 22 aliens and put them in St. Kilda jumpers and went out and played. We flipped the team.
That reminds me of a response I once got from a high school basketball coach. I might have shared this on an episode before.
Which coach was this?
It was former Mills head coach Rick Hansen. I go to see his game the day after his team had won with a 20-point second-half comeback. And I asked him, man, what did you guys do yesterday? And he goes, well, we took the hoop on the Carlmon side and raised it up to 20 feet, and we pumped our guys full of steroids.
In all honesty, though, the Saints' answer and success in this game came from utilizing the dimensions of Norwood, spreading out enough, getting the little space they could and maximizing things on the outside, and then pressure, which is easier to do on a smaller ground. I didn't realize just how small this ground is in comparison. So the MCG is 146 meters wide. Cardinia Park's like around 114 or 116. Norwood's 110.
I love this. When you think of like an oval shape, you probably think of one of two things. You think of kind of like rounded all together, or you think of like straight on the sides and rounded on the ends, and that's what this is. It's kind of like, it's shaped like a pill.
Barnacles, I hate the pill.
This is not a Footy oval. This is a Footy oblong. And I love the Norwood oblong.
Also, I like the architecture of this place.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love just the fans are on top of everything, so you could hear everything. And the crowd was obviously into it because of just how this game turned. And, well, in the first half, what Shea Bolton could do. And the answer to that is fucking everything.
By the way, I just looked at the clip, and the pill that Mr. Krabs has to take is actually more Cardinia shaped than Norwood shaped.
We're really analyzing the...
Yes. But anyway, yeah, Bolton had a couple of just jaw-dropping goals from insane angles. He's so fun to watch. Like, the term Hollywood can be very positive or it can be very negative, and when I call him Hollywood Bolton, I mean that in the most positive way possible. This dude's just so entertaining.
This game looked like it was Richmond's to lose, and it turned into the Saints to win. I don't think it was that Richmond played poorly. I think it was just that St. Kilda had the answers that they just lacked in the first half. The big players in that, I mean, Jack Steele did everything he could throughout the game. Steele, I don't think gets nearly enough praise, not just for his leadership ability, but also in terms of how clean of a handball he is. We know what he can do in terms of tackling and pressure, and he's obviously a leader in that in terms of getting the Saints to play the right way in the second half. But his quick and clean handballing started St. Kilda out of the middle a lot of the time really well, and I don't want that to get lost. And when you have guys to feed out to like Brad Hill and sometimes Darcy Wilson when he ventures toward the center, yeah, things will work out. Wilson was turnover prone, but had a couple big plays on the outside late, of which I really took note. I'm looking forward to watching him grow further. This was also kind of a revival game for Zach Jones, who I thought of for a while as just, oh yeah, this guy's still here, and I'll always be able to recognize him because he's bald.
All right.
Yeah, I thought he had some really explosive, albeit slightly reckless moments, but I liked his game.
Well, it's explosiveness in a couple different ways, because there's the explosiveness in terms of burst with the ball. There's the explosiveness in terms of tackling, a couple real strong marks as well. Will never be a starring player again. We'll never get many votes again, but he can complete like the middle 50 to 60% of the ground really, really well. I think the ruck play was a really interesting one to watch in this one, because on Richmond's side, Jacob Kaczynski as a backup ruck did quite nicely. Ended up with some deft hitouts to advantage. And then the first-rate rucks, both Toby Nankervis and Rowan Marshall, were functional at times as extras, finding their spots in packs. Nankervis did so much of that in the first half, and it seemed like the switch flipped in the second half, and Marshall did that, especially in the fourth quarter, to help out in defense and help preserve the Saints' lead.
So because of the overlap between this and the final game, I really went back and watched the second half of this one more closely after, and kind of like detaching it from the first half. Like the two guys that really stood out the most to me in getting the Saints there, well, it was Steele and then Jack Sinclair launching a few attacks out of the back and playing along what isn't quite a wing there towards the back 50, but along kind of the boundary area, quite literally down the line. So Sinclair started more in the center line, but was moved to half back after Richmond got off to their good start. And from there, he was the deciding factor in a lot of their rebounds. And he follows the play so well, too. So that follow-up work ended up being really crucial at times, too. He's able to follow the play better than someone like, say, Riley Bonner, who had a more of a less is more game this week.
What's a Bonner?
Picked his disposals better, didn't just bomb things, and just on target in a way that made me realize, oh yeah, this is what the Saints saw in him. I give Sinclair more credit than Bonner, but
yeah, that Bonner was good. I would even probably consider him for votes. He didn't get any coaches' votes, but I liked him a lot. And after I kind of took a shit on him last week, 91.7% efficiency.
And it's not just because of long kicks there, it's that he picked out the shorter options too. I think Sinclair had a bit more of that impact all over the oval, but Bonner was not far behind him. If I were his position coach or Ross Lyon or just anyone involved with that Saints coaching staff, I would be so pleased just with the one game turnaround from him.
The Saints did well adjusting and accounting for playing on a smaller, narrower ground. And then later in the game, if we're just looking at the fourth quarter, Cal Wilkie turned into an intercept machine. He didn't do a ton until then, but he had a bunch of key intercepts late to keep the Saints in front. They led for most of the fourth quarter by more than a goal. This was frustrating for Richmond. Just, when you play against a team that has that ugly of a first half, you're thinking, all right, we're in really good shape here. I mean,
Let's bury him.
33-11 at half, 5 points until the final minute of the first half, which is just hard to believe. And then, remember, Richmond got a goal to go into halftime up by 22 because of a Zane Cordy hold on Jacob Kashitsky. Oh, Zane Cordy, I thought this was at least second half. I thought he was really solid. After, in prior games, I thought he's been pretty mistake prone as much as he's done intercept wise. I thought this was a really good game from him.
I put him above Josh Battle in this game. I did not last week. I do this week. So yeah, definitely happy with Cordy.
On the Richmond side, full game wise, Shea Bolton was awesome. He got the 10 coaches votes appropriately.
Was he in that top 5 that you mentioned earlier or no?
No, but I think he was the best forward this round. I know Jesse Hogan also kicked 4, Toby Green kicked 5, Jeremy Cameron had 27 touches. Now, Shea Bolton was the best forward, and it wasn't close. Tim Torano had a great first half, and then second half got held in check some. I think Seb Ross had something to do with that.
Yeah. Oh, irritating thing about this broadcast. 2 Rosses in this game, 2 Riolis in this game, and in general, just a refusal from the broadcasters, despite acknowledging that, to use first names. It was like that for Hawthorne and Collingwood as well.
No, I thought they were actually better about differentiating with the Hawthorne-Collingwood game, which, like, Dwayne Russell noted from the start that, there's 2 McInnes. Well, there's a McInnes and a McGinnis.
But obviously, the Dave
Mitchells, 2 Dacosses, 2 Moores.
Yeah, but the Fox Footy broadcast, the point is, did that better than the Channel 7 broadcast, which I found surprising considering it was Dwayne Russell.
Also, newfound appreciation for Morris Rioli Jr., even though his goal kicking hasn't, he hasn't had too many games where he's gotten into like the 3 or 4 goals like I think he's capable of. But his tackling, oh my God.
I think there was great tackling all around this game. Morris had a couple, but that was
the most fun to watch because he comes in from out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, he
just lays dudes out. And they're like great clean tackles too.
He had a couple fantastic ones. There was one that he got on Riley Bonner that ended up leading to a Richmond goal, and Morris got on the end of another as well. Dan Butler had some really great tackle pressure moments as well. Dan Butler did something that I forgot people were able to do.
He also had a horribly inefficient game, but what did he do?
Get under Nick Vlostone's skin. And Vlostone was really shaky in the fourth quarter. So I think there's something to note there, that a big positive that Dan Butler can take out of an otherwise not pretty game for him against his former club.
Frustrating for Richmond not to win this one. That's a couple close losses, games they've been in, but I think, again, there's stuff to take out of this. They're in a similar position to where the Giants were at this time last year, except they don't have the list age-wise to do much at this time. It's a big gap between the young and the old there.
Sunday night football. I thought I was going to go to sleep at halftime of this game.
And then you did for a bit, didn't you?
Yeah, because I was busy in the morning, had to leave earlier to get to my Sunday school job at the synagogue to help set things up. But the Hawks nearly came back and did this. Collingwood 11-11-77, defeating Hawthorne 11-6-72. Collingwood has delivered, a typical close Craig McRae Collingwood finish in both the first 2 editions of the Gather Round thus far. And you know how, Ethan, we said the 2 South teams should be spread out and one of them should be the last game? Give us Port and Collingwood Sunday night. No overlap, actual Sunday night. I don't care that it's the end of the holidays. People will stay for this.
Yes, I am all in on this.
End the round with all the spite, the battle for the bars, and
I'm so in for this.
And we know it won't happen.
I don't know.
I think Port might play Saturday night, but I doubt that they...
Let's keep speaking this into existence, and hopefully... I think Saturday, they like to have the doubleheader. Anyway, my thoughts, both years now in the... Gather round. Collingwood have won a close one, but they had the big lead. They were up 58-20 at half.
I mean, look at how it ended last year with Collingwood allowing a bunch of late goals to the Saints. So there were, I guess, some kind of patterns with it. And this Collingwood-Hawthorn matchup has been a fascinating one the past couple of years. You had Ali Henry's huge game in 2022, his huge fourth quarter, rather. You had the craziness of last year's matchup. And I am so looking forward already to the rematch this year, especially actually getting Ginnivan in there at the G. Ginnivan was obviously the topic. Shaky Ginnivan game all around, did get a call.
This game really turned on two things at halftime. One was Scott Pendlebury going out with a rib injury, which I was surprised because he kind of took a knee to the back.
Broke a couple ribs, but
I'm surprised he broke ribs. I thought it would have been a back injury. That's kind of strange.
Well, if there's any time to heal.
Yeah, they've got a bye, and Stephen May did it, so...
And this guy's been so durable anyway, I don't expect he's going to miss a lot of time. But what that ended up meaning is Pendlebury was in his 388th game. Sidebottom in his 313th. That adds up to 701 games between the sub pair, far and away the most in AFL history. And while it wasn't a great game for Sidebottom, it was good enough.
Yeah, he wasn't noticeably poor or anything. I thought Jack Crisp, speaking of guys who have played a lot of games and then been used as a sub, I thought he had a really good first half and then faded a bit. But the other big change that keyed the comeback here was Blake Hardwick getting sent forward. Good call, Sam Mitchell. Hardwick ended up with 4 goals in the behind. This is what I think they need out of like Jack Gunston or Mabi Orchol, who I thought was super active on the wing early and somehow only ended up with like 7 disposals for the game, which it's so frustrating because he has the potential, and we only see it in flashes, to absolutely take over.
I am fascinated now by the situation with these ruck forward types for the Hawks. You got the pure ruck in there in Lloyd Meek, who has earned that spot. You got Ned Reeves, who could play a high half forward job. But then you've got Mabior Chol, as well as Max Ramsden, who I could already see the long-term future for him looking pretty damn good. So
he should be in there every game.
This might really end up victimizing Reeves then. But the question now is, how do you manage this group? For Chol, I think it's real about like and everything and getting early touches. So maybe you throw him into the ruck early and then let Ramsden do a bit more of that later while still having Meek be the first-rate guy. Like him doing wing stuff. It's just, you got to find a way to get a full, consistent 4 quarters out of him because the upside is so good. It's just, it doesn't happen regularly enough. It's a problem where I will trust Sam Mitchell to do the right thing.
I mean, I liked Sam Mitchell, like I've said.
Having said that, I do have one gripe about Sam Mitchell, and it's that he keeps playing Carl Amon too far in defense. He was very busy this game. I think he gained over 900 meters, but some of his kicking is still a bit suspect. Some of his longer field kicking.
I thought his kicking, especially in the second half, was pretty good. It just seems like he's being miscast there.
Exactly, and I would love to see him get more of that half-forward flight time like they gave him at Port Adelaide, and then maybe just have Dylan Moore be maybe a bit more of a follower, because Moore can do that. He's got that motor. We had some D Moore on D Moore violence in this game.
Back to some of the other stuff with the forwards. Yeah, Dylan Moore's in a weird spot. So after seeing Hardwick in there, you know who I think could help a lot is as someone who might be out of favor at another club, just something this team misses. They don't really, especially with an aging Jack Gunston, they don't really have, like a big, bruising, tall forward to kind of do the stuff like Jesse Hogan's doing.
Who are you thinking of that's out of favor elsewhere?
Levi Casbolt.
At this point in his career, at age 34, what does Casbolt have left to give? And is he willing to move on to a club where he's probably not going to see flag success in his playing career?
Because that is true. But I think it's worth considering. Just for someone out of sort of that frame, that body type, that's what you're looking for. And that's, I think, what's missing right now. But this was a game for the Hawks to take something out of. Jarman Impey has played really good fourth quarters the last 2 weeks after not doing much in the first 3. If they can find a way to get just a little more out of him, he could be pretty damaging. Just with all the interesting young pieces, that's why I'm so intrigued by this upcoming game this coming week against the Suns. It might end up being a pretty crappy game,
but we'll learn a lot about how both Damian Hardwick and Sam Mitchell evaluate their list at the moment, especially the young crop.
The Suns might win this game by 50 still, but I think it'll be interesting. Couple of Collingwood observations to talk about.
I mean, we kind of have to. They won the game.
Well, first off, I thought, and some of this has to do with not going up against him, but I thought Jack Ginnivan's attitude in this game was just way better. He seemed like he was having a lot more fun. I like that he had actually asked Joel Selwood for how do you draw the high freeze? And the biggest thing Selwood said, and it's exactly what I said, is, you got to try to play through it still. You can't just fling yourself around. You want the call, but you also got to try at least to play through it.
What did I say last week? Go back and look at how Joel Selwood and Luke Shuey do it.
Yep. Spot on. Also, just his back and forth with Isaac Quainer was awesome. You could tell this is two guys that really like each other and go back and forth really well. That was super entertaining and enjoyable.
This back and forth was a 10, but they're now on different teams.
Yes. Great reference. Great reference. I had fun watching that. I liked his demeanor. I liked his attitude. Jordan DeGoey had a really nice game. I thought Darcy Moore and Isaac Quainer played well, and some of that had to do with how John Noble played off of them, kind of as a rebound guy.
I think whenever you have good rebound, it makes the people behind you look better. So that makes sense there. I think Noble had a more even impact in that sense. So definitely worth the mention there.
And you know who else I thought was absolutely outstanding in the first half, which is how Collingwood got out to the lead, and he got one coach's vote?
I think we're talking about a Premiership player.
Yes. I mean, that's totally a meme at this point.
I mean, that's why I mentioned it, because, obviously there's so many flag pies on this team, but this is Billy Frampton actually cutting off a lot of angles.
He was basically impassable in the middle and launched a lot of good rebounds, and just he's been used in a few different roles. And again, he is a meme, but also he's good at taking away an opposing team's tall, whether he's playing as a forward or as a defender. Either way, I think he's pretty effective in that regard. And in this game, I hadn't really seen him launch counterattacks like this or just be completely impassable. It showed some upside that I didn't know he had. Also, Lachie Schultz hasn't quite gotten to the point where he's setting other guys up yet, like I would expect he might, but he kicked a couple goals and got himself comfortable in the pocket. So I like this game out of him still, despite maybe not being the version of him that I loved at Frio. It was definitely better.
And I think people are going to give love to Tom Mitchell because of the big numbers.
He was around the action a lot.
What I will say is almost like Jack Steele at times for the Saints, it was the under pressure, tight contest moments, the short connections where Mitchell excelled. The meters gained does not look pretty in comparison, but he had high quality short handballs that really got Collingwood out of trouble a lot at the time. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for how he played against, his second team. I think we're going on to the awards.
Yeah. We'll start with Mark of the Week. Last week, the winner was Tyler Brockman, who really took it over Bailey J. Williams more than anything. I think that's the right winner.
Yeah, Sam Darcy was the closest defender, but he was playing in front of Williams.
This week's 3 nominees, we've got Jordan Dawson over Christian Salem in the round opener. We got Riley West spinning one-handed mark that he controlled very cleanly over Zach Guthrie and, to a lesser extent, Tim English. And we had some more on more, Dylan Moore over Darcy Moore, with pretty heavy contact between the two.
Well, you know what they say, always leave them wanting more.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I have a hard time deciding, actually, between the second and third ones. Just two very, very different marks. I think the contact and Dylan Moore's kind of parallel action there to get the ball makes his better to put on a poster. But in terms of the mark quality, and just because of how clean it was, I think I'm actually leaning toward Riley West. And this is not one where you jump out of your seat and go, whoa! This is one where you lean back and go, ooh.
You appreciate it more after.
Shea Bolton also had one where he kicked his fourth goal, which was a monster one. He worked back from outside 50. He set that up by mossing Josh Battle. your goal of the week nominees.
My Max King prediction was wrong. He did not kick 6-1. He had a couple of misses on the full, but he did kick an important goal or two, and one of which you'll hear about in greater detail.
Yeah, that was actually the last of the 3 goal of the week nominees chronologically, but since you brought it up. So he took this in the deep right pocket off of a ruck contest where he was the first guy off, and Mitch Owens was the one who took it, and he just snapped it super quick on the boundary. I think that was in the third quarter. You also had Marcus Bontempelli just unloading from 55 plus on the run.
I didn't think that one was that special. If we're looking at like long goals out of that game, I thought Zach Guthrie.
Yeah.
Also, it was just, I think, just a little bit of a wow factor. Like, oh my God, Zach Guthrie did that?
It's like the reaction to Jake Kolajashny kicking goals.
Not quite, but
Close.
he's not the first guy you'd expect.
But I have to say the winner's got to be Shea Bolton, and not just because of everything he did, but for this specific one. This one, he crumbed in the forward 50, just immediately said, you know what, I'm going to go to the pocket and bring this back. And he did because he's Shea Bolton. It makes me think of this quote from Steve Kerr. Early on when he was coach of the Warriors, maybe like 2015 or 16 even, where Stephen Curry was just dribbling inside and out everybody on the Clippers, and then drained a 3 with a whole bunch of time. It was just like, there's 14 seconds on the shot clock. What do you... Great shot, Steph. That's how that felt in that moment. Must have been like that for Adam Uzi. Just like, Shea, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, wait, you're Shea. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like he can take shots that nobody else in their right mind would be taking because that's just what he does. That's Shea Bolton.
Yeah, that was his second of his 4 goals.
I think his first was pretty good too, or maybe it was his third or fourth. I would have probably nominated another of his goals over Banter's 3.
I mean, there was a case, yeah, and he's the winner. There was a case for all 3 nominees to be Shea Bolton and just make this the Shea show.
Main character. This is a tricky one.
I don't think so.
I mean, you could talk about Jack Ginnivan. You could talk, we could just throw Tommy Flanagan in. I think he's going to make the thumbnail at least. But yeah, it's got to be umpire number 19, Alex Wetton. Now, first off, good on Alex Wetton that I had never heard of him before, because normally if you've heard of an umpire, that's not good, except maybe Razor Ray.
Or David Roden.
Yeah. Goal judges are, other than once, generally pretty good.
Yes, but you don't know about them. But even on the broadcast, they point out David Roden because David Roden is worth pointing out every time. I think he was on this last game, Hawthorne and Collingwood.
Yes.
Anyway, but it's...
Because, like, we know Brett Roseberry, for example.
We know, like, Brett Roseberry, Matt Stevick, of course.
Well, Matt Stevick, I don't think is negative.
No, it's not. It's not negative. Like Matt Stevick and Simon Meredith, these guys are like...
Roseberry is a little more negative, at least in my eyes.
I guess, yeah, but those guys are like, they're there all the time, trusted with the big games, especially Stevick has gone for so many grand final. I think he's got the record. But in this case, Wetton paid the dissent. And because the dissent was the biggest controversy of the round, on the Oval, he's got to be the main character. With that, I think this long recap comes to an end.
I think this is kind of a turning point. Just because it evenly breaks the season up into like 6-week blocks, but I just think this one in particular, I mean, I have thought very little about who matches up with who in round 5. Whereas like in the first few rounds, I would always look ahead and be like, all right, they've got this next week and this the week after. I think this is kind of just like, this is a point where the season starts to shift a bit.
As a reminder, you can find us on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram at Americans Footy. I am personally at BenjaminHK01 on Twitter. You'll see my commitment announcement soon.
You can also find me on Twitter at Castle Media. Brian Harambe, of course, is on Instagram at CatNameDRyan.
And if you still think the Blues can't win in Adelaide, you're wrong.
Sucks.